Hi, I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could feel free to join me in the chat room. We're live. The chat room is always open on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You could also call in. Numbers are on the top of the page on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. But in case you want me to say them, you want to hear me say those numbers, they are 301 768 4841 in North America, and in Israel it is 0265 00151. Feel free to join me in conversation right here on Israel News Talk Radio. I've been a little perturbed this week. I've been off for a couple of weeks, and I've been watching the news, and I've been listening to people, and I've been following social media, and I'm a little perturbed, a little disturbed, a little angry. And the reason I'm angry, this is not a new phenomenon. I get angry a lot about this particular thing. The reason I'm angry is because I keep seeing these comparisons that the radical left is making between the Republican Party in the United States and Nazism, between conservatives and Nazism. And I'm thinking, there is really no comparison. There really can't be a comparison. This is kind of an idiotic thing. And I just don't understand how and why this is happening. It's unacceptable. And I don't think we're going to take it anymore. I think we have to fight. We have to fight. All right, we'll be back after this. Hi, I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman here on Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm a little off today. My voice is a little off today. I took a couple of weeks off. I've been having problems with my voice, so I'm going to try to get through the show today. Uh, if I drop out in the middle of a sentence, it's only because I'm having problems with my voice. You could join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You could call in. The show is live. 301-768-4841 in North America. In Israel, 0265 So this past week, I've noticed that the radical left has decided to once again compare the right wing and the conservatives to Hitler and the Nazis. I see this happening over and over again. It's not a new phenomenon. They've been doing this since Ronald Reagan, since the 80s. And it bothers me all the time. Now there's a reason. There's specific reasons why this kind of comparison bothers me. There are specific reasons why I get upset when people do these kind of comparisons. And I want to explain them to you. I think that we should talk honestly and normally about this. And I think we should understand that Nazism and the Holocaust was an event that was unparalleled before it happened and has been unparalleled since it happened. We have to understand that the evilness of Hitler and the Nazis has not been matched by anyone since Nazism. Now, a lot of people are going to say to me, and lefties have said this to me for quite a while, said, Howie, what are you talking about? There have been other genocides. The Jewish genocide wasn't the only genocide. There have been other people trying to kill people. I mean, take a look at the Tutsis and the Hutsis and take a look at the Christians. There's been genocides and genocides and genocides. How could you say that the Holocaust was a special genocide? What was so special about the Holocaust? And I always look at them and in disbelief. When they ask me this, I look in disbelief. I can't believe they're asking me this question. And then they make the comparison to Stalin. Stalin killed 30 million people. Mao Zedong killed 20 million people. They make all these comparisons. And I look at them in disbelief. The reason, 60 million, sorry, Stalin killed 60 million people. And the reason I look at them in disbelief is because they can't see the obvious. The obvious is bare to them. It's gone. It's not there. When we look at Nazism compared to some of the other genocides, Stalin sent people to the Gulag. He sent them to Siberia. When we compare Nazism and their mission to destroy the Jewish people, and when I say destroy the Jewish people, destroy every trace that the Jewish people ever existed. And we look at Stalin, who was killing what he considered political opponents or people dangerous to the state. I see a clear difference between one and the other. First of all, Stalin didn't set up killing factories. He didn't build factories designed just to kill people. He didn't set up a network of soldiers whose sole goal it was to eradicate a race of people. That wasn't his purpose. Stalin was crazy. He liked to kill people he thought were opposed to him. But he wasn't specifically after one nation, trying to murder one nation. And he didn't build killing factories. The uniqueness of the Holocaust, the uniqueness of the evil of the Holocaust, is the fact that they built killing factories, full factories, for the murder and the disposal of the Jewish people. Nobody else has done that anywhere in the world ever. They built factories where they housed the Jews before they killed them. They took the Jews and put them into gas chambers and gassed them. Then they took their bodies and they burned them. Now the reason they burned the bodies was because they didn't want the evidence to be around that they murdered all these people. This was the largest crime, the largest mass murder in human history. And comparing a political party to this kind of atrocity, to this kind of evilness, is lunacy. You have to be completely insane to do something like that. You have to be completely out of your head to even consider that some kind of correlation could exist between the American government making some policy and the eradication of an entire people in the world. This was their goal. Their goal was to eradicate Jews in the entire world. They were going to conquer the entire world, and as they conquered country after country, they proved their point. After they conquered country after country, they decided they wanted to kill the Jews in all these countries. So, comparing Hitler to, let's say, Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan or George Bush is absolutely, completely an insult to the victims of Nazism. It's an insult to the memory of the victims of Nazism. How can we as Jews, or we as rational people, forget about we as Jews, we as rational people, how could we make the argument that the mass eradication of a nation, that setting up killing factories and having killing squads running around killing people and murdering 3/4 of the Jewish population of Europe, is somehow akin, somehow correlated to the American government separating children at the border and putting children in one detention center and parents in another detention center, or the American government making some kind of tax policy, or Donald Trump, when he was American president, getting up and insulting someone. I think there is a clear separation between the evilness of Nazism and anything that happened or has happened till today in the United States. I don't think you can compare them. Now you might disagree with me, and that's fine, because that's why we have open lines. You can call in. If you disagree with me, feel free to call in. 301-768-4841 in North America. In Israel, 0265000151. But I think it's kind of crazy to make this kind of comparison. Now the most recent case of this comparison was the CPAC convention that happened this past weekend. So just before the convention happened, the organizers of the convention sent out a picture of the room. And the lefties went nuts. They went totally crazy. They said that the room was designed in the same style as some kind of SS pin that was on the SS uniform, and that the conservatives intentionally designed the room to look like some Nazi imagery. How ridiculous, how crazy do you have to be to seek out, to look at a picture of a room and a stage in a room, and then seek out some kind of correlation to Nazism? How insane do you have to be? Almost as insane as looking at a Dr. Seuss book and thinking, oh my gosh, that's a racist book, we have to ban it. Almost as insane as looking at Mr. Potato Head, a toy potato, and worrying about what gender it is. This world has gone psycho. This world has gone insane. Crazy. And normal people are sitting around and accepting this. Normal people aren't going crazy. Normal people aren't arguing. They're not fighting this. And I don't understand why. I used to think we lived in some kind of rational world. I used to think that at one point or another, even the crazies would realize how crazy things have gotten. I was wrong. I am wrong. I was wrong. I had faith in the world. I had faith that some kind of lucid thought, some kind of reality would hit people, and people would realize that the direction we're going in is clearly to the gutter, and once we hit the gutter, there's nowhere to go under that. We are self-destructing, and normal, rational people are allowing it to happen. Apathy is allowing it to happen. And this happens all the time. When some crazy ideology comes along and wants to do something insane, apathetic people who are comfortable don't do anything to counter it. So you have a few people on the radio, you have a few people on television, you have a couple people who write in various publications. They're the ones who are pointing out that this is crazy. Although anybody who looks at the idea of worrying about the gender of a plastic potato as normal seriously needs some mental help. Now, I'm not sure what's causing this lunacy. I'm not sure if there is some genetic problem with the human race, that some kind of genetic issue has happened in people's brains, and it's not really their fault. I am not sure if it's some kind of brainwashing that's happening on university campuses, and I'll talk about university campuses a little later on in the show, because I was in a university campus not long ago, so I'll tell you what goes on in those. So I'm not sure where it comes from. Anyway, we'll talk about it when we come back from the break. I'm Howie Soberger. This is Political Hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could call in. Numbers are on the top of the page on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm Howie Silverger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. Feel free to join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You could call in, shows live. Numbers to call in North America, 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 0265000151. So we're talking about lefty lunacy. It is rampant right across the world. It's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Normal people are pretty much being quiet. I mean, you have a few stepping up and screaming, but you know, when normal people get up and scream about this lefty lunacy, the lefties who seem to outnumber the rational people, are trying, always try to make the normal people look dumb. It's amazing, and I love the tactics they use because I see them all the time, especially on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I see it all the time, and it fascinates me sometimes the techniques they try to use to make whatever rational argument you're making to their lunatic argument sound lunatic itself. So they try to make their lunatic arguments sound normal, and your rational arguments sound lunatic. It's quite amazing. I was on a university campus not long ago. I finished my third degree, and as an older person on campus, you see the university in a different light than when you're a younger person on campus. So when I did my first two degrees, I was young. I was in my early 20s. Extremely young. In fact, I started my first degree. When I started my first degree, I was 17, 18 years old. So I was really young, and then I went back and I did a third degree in my early 40s. And so when I got onto campus, I saw the campus as a totally different institution than it was when I was younger. And the way I was looking at it with the experience behind me and my knowledge, it was a very different experience. So I just want to share with you. I think I shared it on the show before, but let's share it again because it's a fun story. I was taking an introduction to literature course. I had no choice but to take this course. It was a prerequisite for me graduating, and I took this course, and it was a lecture followed by a lab. So you went and you listened to somebody drone on about whatever genre of literature they were talking about that week, and then you would go to sit with a teacher's assistant in a classroom, while the teacher's assistant reiterated or explained or clarified things that the professor said that you may not have understood. And so it was basically 3 hours of time that you would spend, 2 hours with the lecturer and 1 hour with the assistant. So we went in and we sat down. I sat down in the first class with the assistant, and she got up and she said, the first thing she said when she got up was, "Listen, ladies and gentlemen," and she actually said, "Ladies and gentlemen." Then she said, "Aha, you see, this is what we're not going to do in this class." And I sat and I looked at her and I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And she said, there were maybe 15 people in the class. It wasn't a very big class. She said, "This is a safe zone. So in a safe zone, we don't use gender pronouns. We don't use, we don't say anything that might offend somebody else. We don't talk about religion, and we don't acknowledge. Well, I said gender pronouns already, but we don't use gender pronouns. We don't acknowledge gender. It is a totally neutral, clean zone, and this is what it's going to be for our class." So I sat there and I listened to this person go on and on and on, and at the end of her little spiel about being gender neutral and everything else, she said, "Is there any questions?" And I raised my hand and I said, "Yeah, I have just one question." I said, "Why is any of this relevant to learning about literature? I don't understand how this relates to the course." And she looked at me, and if looks could kill, if laser beams could come out of somebody's eyes, her eyes would have laser beams coming out of them. And I didn't even think it was that controversial of a question. I didn't think it was that bad of a question. And she looks at me and she says to me, "Are you planning on breaking the rules?" Now, I hadn't even considered at the time breaking the rules. I really didn't care too much about it. I was just there to kill the time, get my degree, and move on. So I wasn't really thinking about breaking the rules. But then she said, "Are you here to break the rules?" And I said to her, "I have no intention of breaking the rules. I was just curious why the rules exist. Why do we need these kind of rules? Why can't we just be respectful to each other and just kind of live our lives?" And she looked at me and she said to me, "If you break the rules, I will throw you out of this class and you will fail." I said, "Okay, no problem." So I was a good boy. For a change, I was a good boy. I didn't start up. I sat there quietly. I listened to what they had to say. If she asked a question, I answered her question. And I didn't really mess with anybody, although I could have, because there were some people in there that were really strange people, but I didn't mess with anybody. We went through a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks. 4 weeks later, we get to a point where the lecturer is talking about feminist literature. And I'm listening to the lecturer talk about feminist literature. And we went into the lab after the feminist literature lecture. And we sat down, and the teacher's assistant got up and she said, "Does anybody here have any questions?" So I raised my hand. And she kind of moaned a little bit, that dismissal type of thing that they do. And she says, "You have a question?" I was like, "Yeah, I have a question." She said, "What's your question?" And I said, if we're not recognizing gender, and gender doesn't mean anything, and there's no difference between men and women, and everybody's equal, and everything is equal, and everybody is everything, everybody works the same way, everybody thinks the same way. We're all just clones of each other, which is essentially what you were saying. Then why are we learning feminist literature? What does feminist literature mean? I mean, how could we point out that there is a difference between women and men when they write? Their books are different. Their thought processes are different. So their books are different. How could we talk about feminist literature if the female gender doesn't exist? So if there are no women and there are no men, what is the difference if a woman wrote this book or a man wrote the book? She looked at me, and once again, lasers, and said, "You are a troublemaker, and I'm going to throw you out of class." And I said to her, "Go ahead. Throw me out of class, because then I will take you. I will take you to the advocacy office. We'll have a little chat, because I'm asking you a legitimate question. You made a huge speech, a huge deal about the fact there's no genders in this classroom," I said to her. "And here you are telling me that we're going to learn about how women think? What's a woman? I don't understand what you're saying." And we spoke and we talked in circles for a few minutes, and then after we finished talking in circles, she went on, moved on to something else. And I said, "Wonderful, amazing." And she kind of just ignored me after that for the rest of the course. And so I bring this story up because it's almost the same kind of conversation I have with people making comparisons to the Holocaust. It's almost the same conversation. Trump is Hitler. No, Trump isn't Hitler. Trump never organized a killing squad to go and kill people. Trump never built killing factories. Trump didn't write a book before he became president saying that he wanted to go and kill this group of people, and he was going to build killing factories to kill this group of people. No, Trump is not Hitler. He's not anywhere close to Hitler. He hasn't done anything at all, actually, that Hitler did. So why don't you go and learn history? And then they try to bring me proof, and it goes back and forth, and it's like running in a circle, like I was running in a circle with that with that teacher's assistant. There's a never-ending circle, because they always seem to double back and then just keep repeating the same point again. Trump is Hitler. It annoys the heck out of me. It annoys the heck out of me because it diminishes the evilness of the Holocaust. It diminishes the evilness of Hitler, the evilness of the whole final solution. It drives me insane because it minimizes the murder of the Jewish population of Europe. If everybody is a victim of Hitler, if everybody is Hitler and everybody's a victim of Hitler, then the victims of Hitler, the people who died because of Hitler, have no value anymore. There's no value to that memory anymore. If you dilute the memory, then there's no value to it. And that's the problem with these constant comparisons to the Holocaust, is that the more you do it, the more you cheapen the Holocaust. The more you cheapen the Holocaust, the harder it is to teach the next generation how evil the Holocaust was. How could you go to a kid and tell a kid the Holocaust was evil? I'll tell you why the Holocaust is evil, because let's watch some survivor stories. You'll understand why the Holocaust was evil. And the kid says, well, how evil could it have been? It still exists today. Look, Donald Trump is Hitler. Ronald Reagan was Hitler. George Bush was Hitler. So, I mean, how bad could Hitler have been? That's the problem with diluting history. That's the problem with constant comparisons to evil people in history. You dilute their evilness. We shouldn't do that. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. Join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. Feel free to call in 301-768-4841 in North America, in Israel 0265000151. Those numbers are on top of the page on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, where you could also join me in the chat room. I'm in the chat room for the duration of the show. I'm monitoring the chat in the chat room, so feel free to join the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. So we're talking about this cancel culture, this craziness that's going on right around the world. We see it mostly in the United States because they report it more than anywhere else, but it's happening pretty much everywhere, where the lefties have taken over, and the lefties have decided that they are going to control the society. They're going to control what we cannot say. They're going to control what we can and cannot do, and this is all they're going to do, and this is what they're doing. So they got big tech behind them. So we see that Amazon has deleted right off their service. They had a documentary on Clarence Thomas, the only African American Supreme Court justice in the United States. They had a documentary on his life. They took it out because they don't agree with his politics. There are a couple of books they removed because they don't agree with his politics. And just today, or yesterday, they announced that they were going to they were going to ban 5 Dr. Seuss books. So for those of you who don't know who Dr. Seuss was, he was a children's author. He wrote about 70 books for children. And they're going to ban some of his books because they deemed that some of the books that he wrote were racist. But then again, they say everything is racist. Doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. It's racist. Someone's going to point at this show. I'm sure somebody's going to send me an email at this show after the show and tell me, Howie, you're racist because you said this. Everything is racist. And it's the most amazing thing in the world. That if they disagree with you, a political opinion, if they disagree with something you say or something you do, then you are a racist automatically. You're a white supremacist, you're a racist, you're a Nazi. These are the 3 things they call you, and they are the 3 worst things that you could be called. And they do it on purpose, and the reason they do it is to diminish your hope, to take away your spunk, to try to crush you, to crush your spirit, so you don't fight back. Because the second you fight back, the second you stand up and say you are wrong, they usually back into a corner, and then you can back them into a corner, and then they usually fade away. But no one's willing to do that, because cancel culture today has gotten a lot of people fired. Now, no one's going to get me fired from this job, and nobody's going to throw me off the air. I'm going to keep doing shows. But the idea that things that you say publicly could get you canceled is radically new. It's within the last 10, 15 years. And it's extremely scary for a lot of people. I got a teaching certificate. I got a teaching degree. I got a license to teach. And so I had to go on internships to get a license to teach. You have to go and you have to practice and you have to prove yourself. So I went to various little elementary schools and high schools to teach classes to get the certificate that I needed in order to be a licensed teacher. And I have to tell you that the experience was not the greatest experience in the world. Some of these teachers had Googled my name. And I've been writing, and I have been broadcasting, and I have been in the media for the last nearly 30 years, for 25 years. And I have written many, many columns on many different topics, and they could be found all over the internet. So if you go to the internet and you type my name into Google, you'll find tons of stuff that I've written and stuff that I've been involved in. And it's all public. There's nothing private. It's all public because I wrote for media. I wrote for legitimate media. And so in one school that I was in, I was there for about a few days, 3-4 days. And I was getting along with the teacher I was working with and the kids. I was just starting to get to know the kids. We were just starting to work together. And suddenly one day I got home and I was told by by my supervisor, the university supervisor, she called me up and said to me, "You can't go back to that school." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because, the principal of the school Googled your name and found an article that he disagreed with politically. And because he disagreed with it politically, it means that he doesn't want you in his school anymore. So you can't go back to that school. Now, whether we'll find you another school or not, that's up to the university. But you can't go back to that school because the principal of the school disagreed with something you wrote." I said, "Well, I was in the school the whole day, and the principal did not ask me a question. I saw him 3-4 times over the course of the day. He didn't ask me anything about stuff I wrote. If he had a problem with me, why didn't he call me into his office and talk about it? I was there. I was physically there. He could have had a conversation." And she said, And this is indicative of exactly how the system works. She said, no, he's never going to talk to you about it. He's going to talk to me about it. I'm the supervisor. And he's going to ask me to fire you. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And that's the way it works. You are guilty with no chance of defending yourself. You are guilty before you even have a chance to explain yourself. You are guilty by the whim of the person reading whatever you wrote. Now, the article he was talking about, the article I assume he was talking about, because he never told me, nobody ever told me what article he was talking about. But the article I assume he was talking about was an article right when Bruce Jenner announced that he was transitioning into Caitlyn Jenner. I had written an article, and it was a research piece done for a newspaper concerning transgenderism at the time, asking the question if transgenderism, if sexual dysphoria and this whole thing, look at the scientific angle of transgender. I didn't take any opinion on it. I presented both scientific sides because there were two sides at the time arguing, and it was the hottest topic at the time, and that's what I wrote my column on. And that column apparently got me fired from that internship. Now, it wasn't a paid internship. I didn't mind getting fired from it. It didn't bother me too much. But it could have resulted in me being removed from the program because you can't get fired from internships when you're in a teaching program. So this is the problem that we have, that people's lives get ruined because somebody didn't agree with your political position, or somebody didn't agree with the fact that you looked at the science behind something, or someone didn't agree with something else you wrote or said or did 30, 40 years ago. And it comes back to bite you. The past is never the past anymore. Now, one of the great evils of this whole thing, of course, is social media, which records everything and keeps everything for you. But it keeps it for you and it keeps it for everybody else. So social media is a real problem when it comes to moving on from the past. The internet's a problem because nothing ever disappears on the internet. So anything you've ever done on the internet, anything at all that you've ever done on the internet is there and could be found by resourceful people. So even if you deleted that post, even if you decided that you didn't want to, you didn't like the video you posted on YouTube, somebody has it somewhere. It's there. It's still there. It doesn't disappear. And the way you know this is if you go to Facebook and you download your data, or any of these social media companies, and you download your data, you ask them to send you all the data they have on you. There's a folder in the collection of data, which is usually 10, 12 gigabytes. There's a folder in there with deleted messages and deleted posts and deleted pictures. So even the stuff that you delete that you thought is gone is not gone. Now one of the great programs that are used by many of the young people to do all sorts of stuff is Snapchat. And Snapchat became popular because you took a picture, you sent it to somebody, and it disappeared after 3-4 seconds. But Snapchat recently changed their user agreement. And now their user agreement says that they could store the picture forever. So there you go. It never, ever, ever goes away. So these comparisons to Hitler, even if you don't mean them, even if you're just saying them because you're a parrot of CNN or MSNBC, even if you are one of those people who reads something and then just spits it back out because it sounded like a good talking point, it sounded like a good argument, so I'm just going to spit it back out at you. If you're one of those people, your arguments stay online forever. And so how could you be proud of yourself? How could you be a moralistic person? And how could you even consider yourself sane when you could look at a stage, an empty stage, at a political conference, and then go and search for the imagery that it may represent? So go and search for some Hitler imagery that might match that. It's lunacy, and that's what's happening today. So you can't take it seriously, and that's really the argument I'm making now. Left-wing lunacy cannot be taken seriously. You have to take it with a grain of salt. You have to look at it for what it is. Craziness, lunacy, idiocy. And you have to call it out every opportunity you have. Fight it out. Call it out. Say, this is crazy. This is unacceptable. Don't let the crazies get away with it. Because if you let them get away with it, we are looking at the destruction of the world. This is the beginning of the end of the world. If we allow this to continue, we are being apathetic to the future of our world, and we're robbing the world from future generations. Quite sad, quite scary, I know. So we got to stand up. We got to do something about it. I'm Howie Silvergren, political hitman. I will see you again next week. Thank you for joining me.